And the second stage seems to be in a more miraculous way. In fact, the miracle, which sort of, in some ways, is the turning point of entering that most miraculous era. When we see a miracle, which is sort of a miracle of all miracles, that the dead come back to life, that's a whole era completely. But even before that, when there are changes in the world, and nevertheless, we're not seeing those kind of miracles. That era is called Yemei Mashiach, is the time of Mashiach, the time that no longer you're not being persecuted, they have all the freedom to learn Torah, and that things are happening in a positive way for Gashmis and for Ruchnis for Yidden. So how long will that be? So what we did Friday was where it says, it brings an opinion, it'll be 40 years. I wanted to add something to that. And that is, on the surface it means, let's say there's a moment where, okay, now Mashiach is already here. This is that first stage. So now we have to wait another 40 years until so it's a little disappointing. Whenever that good time is going to be, that moment is going to be, that we have to now wait more till the dead come back to life. So it's interesting that everyone said that even though it says here we have to wait 40 years, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be 40 years. As we see, a lot of things are a metaphor. So 40 years doesn't have to be 40 years. And that ever brings an interesting example. One of the things we'll be reading in the Torah in just a few short weeks is about a story why the Yidden ended up being in the desert for 40 years after they went out of Mitzrayim. They were supposed to go straight from Mitzrayim into Eretz Yisrael. Instead, they wandered in the desert for 40 years. What was the reason? Because they wanted to have spies, that the spies should take a look and see how we'll be able to conquer Eretz Yisrael. The spies went. Instead of coming back with a report, which is supposed to be what's the best way to conquer the land, they came back with a negative report, we can't conquer the land. There's no way to go in there, and if we go there, we'll all be defeated by the people who live there, and they demonstrated that they don't believe Moshe, they don't believe Hashem, and they don't trust that Hashem could do that for them. They were punished. And what was the punishment? That they have to be punishment to be in the desert for 40 years. Why 40 years? Because it took them 40 days to scout throughout the whole land. So for every day that they were acting as spies, they had to go through a year in the Midbar. Why Hashem made it that way, we don't understand. But that's what it said. For the 40 days that they spent with a negative outlook, and they brought back the negative outlook to the other Jews, that's why it had to be now 40 years. Whatever said, look, if 40 days could turn into 40 years, so why can't 40 years turn into 40 days? And instead of having to wait 40 years for Tchis HaMeisim, we'll only have to wait 40 days. And instead of waiting 40 days, who says 40 days? It could be also 40 hours. Instead of waiting 40 hours, it could be 40 minutes. On the surface, it just sounds like it's a play on words at 40, 40, 40, I have 40, I in. But there's an explanation to this. In Chassidus, it says, do you remember this from the beginning of the year, why the Mabul was why the rain was coming down for 40 days and 40 nights? Anyone remember the Hasidic reading for 40?
Like amount of weeks of pregnancy.
Yes, I think that's one explanation is given, yeah.
The days when Moshe was
That's also 40. I think I'm looking more for the Hasidic explanation. The Hasidic explanation is that the Mabul wasn't just a punishment. The Mabul was like a mikveh. They had to refine and purify the world. The world became totally impure from all the immoral things that they did. The world had to be become purified. How to become purified? By the water. So this water was spiritually had the same purpose like a mikveh. How much water must there be in a mikveh? 40 sa. Sa is the Hebrew measurement. Has to be a measurement of 40 sa. And the 40 days corresponds to the 40 sa. But now let me ask you a question. Why 40 sa? Why not 39 or 38? 35? So when you learn Chassidus, you don't know the answer to every question, but you do know the general answer to all questions. Everything Hashem, you're right.
Anything to do with the man?
What?
Anything to do with the man?
Definitely has something to do with the map. The map is also 40. And today's the 40th day of the counting of the Omer. Today is the right day to talk about the 40. The general idea is that, according to Chassidus, everything that is found in Torah and mitzvahs that's related to numbers are related to spheres. Like, why did this week we did Pirkei Avos that Hashem created the world with 10 utterances? Why 10 utterances? You know, of course you know. Why did Hashem speak 10 times, and with these 10 Maimaras he created the world? Why 10? Because the 10 spheres. The whole world was created with Chochmah, Bina, Das. Chesed, Geulah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, the 10 spheres. So how did it manifest in the 10 sayings, in the 10 Maimaras that he said? Why did Hashem create the world in 7 days? Because the world was created with the 7 attributes. Sunday was Chesed, Monday was Geulah, and the next day was Tiferet, and so on. Why do we count sphere of 49 days? We're doing this right now because we say there are 7 spheres. Each one includes 7, so that's 49. Basically, all the numbers are connected to spheres. Those that are 3, it'll say, oh, this corresponds to Chesed, word to Tiferet. Those that are 7, it corresponds to the 7 meters. Those that are 10 corresponds to the 10 spheres. And of course, the other question is we need to know more Kabbalah and more Chassidus. Why over here do we connect it to 3 spheres and here to 7 spheres and here to 49 and here to this and here to that? But everything that is here is connected to spheres. So that means that when it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was on the mountain, like you said before, and on the mountain he studied Torah for 40 days and 40 nights and then came down, why 40? Must be the same thing. There's something up there that's related with 40 levels. And Moshe Rabbeinu had to go through those 40 stages, 40 levels, in order to receive the Torah in a complete way. One of them is that it says that there are, it says when a person turns 40, that's when they get Bina. That's when they have real understanding. So obviously the number 40 is related to the sphere of Bina. And in that sphere of Bina, there are 40 compartments, 40 levels, 40 divisions. And Moshe Rabbeinu needed 40 days for each one of those to be here. So anything in the Torah that's related to the number 40, it's because it's connected to whatever it is up there that has 40 parts to it. So in the mikveh, it manifests in the fact that the water has 40 measurements. In the Mabul, in the flood, it was that the flood was raining for 40 days and 40 nights. But the 40 part is the same. It comes from something that has 40 parts to it, and therefore it had to come out in 40 different details. So the fact that the Jews were in the desert for 40 years means that something had gone wrong. They needed to correct it. And whatever went wrong was connected to number 40. Why? Because they were 40 days traveling in Israel. And during these 40 days, they went out against Hashem and against Moshe. So that was 40 days. So to correct it, they also had to have 40. But instead of 40 days, Hashem made it 40 years for whatever reason. But that means that they're both connected to the same thing spiritually, except by the Meraglim, by the spies, it manifested in them traveling 40 days. And by the Yidden, in order to correct the damage, it had to be manifest itself in a period of 40 years. Same here. If it says that Moshiach is going to come, and then we're going to need to wait 40 years for the way this dead to come back to life. Why wait so many years? It means that then we have to go through another process, and that process is connected to whatever is there spiritually 40, and therefore we'll have to wait 40 years. Each year, another one of those aspects will be revealed, and then we can have Tchias HaMesim. So the Rebbe is saying that if we merit, 40 years could become 40 days, which means we'll bring down all those things that are number 40, but we'll bring down the 40 levels not in 40 years, but in 40 days. Or even better, if we were at a higher level, we can bring it down not in 40 days, but in 40 hours, and so on. So it's not just a game or a little cute thing with words 40-40. It means that I gave an example last time when we spoke about it at the beginning of the year, is that it says that when Moshiach comes, a woman will conceive and give birth on the same day, 9 hours later, instead of 9 months. If it's the same day, why does it have to be 9 hours? Why can't it just be the same day? So the idea is that obviously for a baby to be born, spiritually something has to be processed in 9 levels. Down here, it manifests in 9 months. When Mashiach comes, the same 9 levels will still be necessary, but instead of manifesting in 9 months, it'll be 9 days, 9 hours.
Question?
Yeah.
So nine months, it's 40 weeks, it's something hours. So how does that play into it? Like, there's so many different ways of breaking up time.
Right. So I guess the way the Gemara breaks it up, you see broken up by hours or week by a certain number. That number means that's what's important.
What's the number that's
That's
spoken about?
That's the number that corresponds to the spiritual levels. 2 levels or 3 levels or 8 levels or 49 levels, like in our case, or 50 levels and so on. Okay, so one opinion says it'll be 40 years. Then we go to the next opinion. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Shivim Shana. It'll be 70 years. Then we'll have to wait. And again, same principle would probably apply. Why 70? And here again, you have a number of things that are 70. How many things do you know that are 70 in Torah? 70.
Languages.
70 languages, 70 nations.
The 70 souls that came out of Mitzrayim.
When they came out of Mitzrayim, there was 70. The original Jewish nation was 70. What about Geulah Babel? The Geulah in Babel was 70 years. So anything that's number 70 is also connected to something spiritually, that there's 70 parts to it, 70 levels to it, and therefore, in different cases, it manifests in 70 years, 70 days, 70 people, but it's connected to something up there that's 70. Even though it says 70 years, of course, if we're Zeicha, it could be the same thing. Instead of 70 years, 70 days. But what is it based on? Because there's a pasuk where it says, "It shall come to pass on that day that Tyre shall remain forgotten for 70 years, which corresponds to the days of one king." That's the pasuk. So the Gemara says, who is this one king? That's Moshiach. In other words, it's going to be a time that Moshiach will come, and then 70 years we'll wait until we'll have the Tchiyah Samesim. And there's another opinion. Rabbi says it'll be 3 generations. Three generations. What does that mean? Yerucha is a pasuk that says, as it says, may they fear you as long as the sun and the moon endure for a generation and generations. A generation is 1, generations plural is 2, altogether 3 generations. As if to say there'll be Mashiach, then another generation and another generation. And again, all these things could be literal, could be a metaphor, and so on. Then comes something which created a very big controversy, is the next thing, Rabbi Hillel. Rabbi Hillel said, you all know the name Hillel. Hillel is a famous sage, but this is not that sage. This is a descendant of his. So he's called Reb Hillel. The other person is called Hillel HaZakan, the elder Hillel. He said, Ein lem Mashiach l'Yisrael. There will be no Mashiach for Yidden because they already enjoyed Mashiach in the days of Chizkiyahu. On the surface, it seems to be saying, you remember, we once spoke about the fact that there was a king called Chizkiyahu HaMelech, and he was a king who did everything he can to raise the bar amongst the Jewish people regarding learning Torah and Yiddishkeit, and he was so successful. And he was, of course, a king from the family of King David, that Hashem wanted to appoint him as Moshiach, which means the generation was ready, and he was ready, and it was almost about to happen. But then there was an argument where the prosecuting angels came to Hashem, and they said, how could you appoint him as Moshiach? He had such big miracles, and he did not thank you and praise your name and publicize these miracles where he should have. And this is the basis where the Rebbe derives the fact that today, by publicizing miracles, it actually brings Mashiach closer. Because if not publicizing miracles prevented Mashiach, then obviously publicizing miracles will hasten Mashiach's coming. So this opinion says at that time was such an amazing time, that was it, that was Mashiach, and they won't have it again. So the Gemara says, how could you say that? Rabbi Yosef said, may Hashem forgive this Rabbi Hillel for saying such a thing. How could you say that there won't be Mashiach, chas v'shalom? And he goes on to say, when did Chizkiyahu live? Let's go to page 99A2. Chizkiyahu, this king, lived during the time of the first temple. And after his life, there was a Navi called Zechariah, and he lived in the time of the second temple, and he was one of the prophets who prophesied about Mashiach. These are his words: rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion, shout, daughter of Yerushalayim, behold, your king is coming to you. He's righteous and victorious and humble, riding on a donkey. So basically, of course, Mashiach is still coming, because here's a Navi that prophesied Mashiach is coming after the life of this king. Basically, if you look at the notes, there's a lot of discussion here in the notes on the bottom, and there are different ways of interpreting what he meant. To this day, there's no opinion today of any Jew who's a religious Jew that will tell you, oh, there's an opinion in Gemara that we don't have to wait for Mashiach because it happened already. There's no such opinion. Anyone who would say such a thing would be considered heresy. In fact, all Jews, I wouldn't say all, but most Jews, because Chabad actually doesn't, but most Jews have it in our davening, that at the end of the davening, they declare their emunah in 13 things, and one of them is a Mashiach. Ani ma'amin beis Mashiach. So this is, every Jew believes that. So what did he mean when he said those words? So there's a few opinions how to interpret those words. And one opinion is, and I'm going to bring all of them. Let me just for a second go back over here. So what one opinion is that what he meant was, we learned before that first will be a period of Mashiach, and then will come where things will be beautiful and good, and then will come the time of miraculous things like the dead coming back to life. That's what he means. That first period we already had in the days of Chizkiyahu. So in the future, when Mashiach comes, we'll go immediately into the second period of Tchias HaMesim. But he's not negating the fact that this is what's going to happen. Another opinion is, some say what he meant was that, no, of course we'll go out of Geulah, and all these things will definitely change, but it'll be done through Hashem himself, not through Mashiach as a person, because that happened already in those days. I'm sorry. So basically, the opinion, which is, I think, a little bit the easiest one to relate to, is Maharal of Prague. And he says like this, that of course, he's no different than anyone else. We all believe that there's going to be a person, and that person will be Moshiach, and he'll lead us out of Geulah. And there's no doubt that that time is going to come. It's not even a question. But what it means is something else. It means that the miracles in the times of Mashiach will be so amazing, will be so out of human nature, will be so out of this world, that it'll be as if Hashem himself is taking us out, that it's not even being processed through a human being, because then the miracles will be beyond anything that we can even understand and relate to for a human being. So that's what it means. That it'll really be Hashem, and he'll do it through Mashiach. But it'll be so miraculous and so out of this world that it'll be as if Hashem himself is the one that's leading us out of Geulah. But again, not to make any mistake, that there's an opinion that holds differently. And all opinions agree that every Jew who believes in Hashem believes that redemption is coming, and every Jew believes that redemption will be through a person who's a king, and that's what we're waiting for. Okay. To 91A2. Okay, now how long will it last? The time of Mashiach. Here again, you have a number of opinions, how long that would be. But here you have different opinions. So let's look again at 91A2, where it says the Gemara cites another brisa that discusses the Messianic era. Tanya Idach, it was taught in another brisa. Rabbi Lezer says, Yemaisa Mashiach, the days of Mashiach, will last for 40 years. And the basis for that is because it says he afflicted you and let you go hungry, and he fed you the man. Where was that? In the desert. And then there's another passage that says, gladden us according to the days you afflicted us, according to the years when we saw harm. In other words, Hashem, now do good for us, similar to the days that you did the opposite. So being that the opposite was 40 years in the desert, the good will also be 40 years in the times of Mashiach. Reb Doisa says, it's going to be 400 years. Why? Because it says, they will serve them and they will afflict them 400 years. And there's another verse which means the Jews had to be in Mitzrayim for 400 years. There's another verse that says, Samchenu Kimoisen Nishanu. You should gladden us according to the days that you afflicted us. So this interpretation says, we're talking about when Hashem afflicted us in Mitzrayim. So being that was for 400 years, so the good in the times of Mashiach would also be for 400 years. Rabbi says, Shloish Meyes V'Shishim V'Chamesh Shana. It'll be 365 days. Where do they get that from? It's the amount of days that exist in the year. So it'll be so many years, 365 years. Why? Because it says, for the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my people's redemption is coming. Which means that the time of redemption will be in correspondence to a year. Just like a year is 365 days, that's our redemption. The process will be 365 years. Now, what's the difference? One says 400 years, one says 40 years, one says 365 years. So all this is related, like I said before, if we don't understand it spiritually, it's very difficult to understand what's going on. All this is about where and from what level spiritually is this going to be coming from. So therefore, one says it's coming from a place which is something related to the number 40, and the other says it's coming from a place which is related to the number 400, and the other one says it's coming from a place which is related to 365. But as far as we're concerned, this is not, the only thing it means is that there are going to be stages once Mashiach comes. And the question is, one of those stages, how long will that stage be? But there'll be stages. There'll be stages when Mashiach comes and things will be natural. There'll be stages when there'll be miracles, and there'll be stages upon stages after Mashiach comes as well. But it doesn't mean that the time of Mashiach is only 40 years. That all this is all about 40 years. Of course, it will be much more. It just means that it'll be 40 years, a certain stage in Mashiach's coming. Then the Gemara asks, what does it mean when it says the day of vengeance is in my heart? Meaning, when he first did vengeance, he means it's the day that Hashem will bring redemption, but it'll also be the day that all the wicked, all the klippa will be removed from this world, and Hashem will take revenge of the klippa. What does it mean it's in my heart? It means I revealed the date of the redemption to my heart, but I have not revealed it to my limbs. In other words, as if to say, Hashem says, I know the day of redemption, but I didn't reveal it to anyone else. Something which is a very hidden secret. Reb Shimon ben Lakish, he says, Hashem is saying, in my heart, I know what it is, but I didn't reveal it to the angels. And what's the reason why this is such a big mystery secret? You must remember that we also had something in Chumash, Parshas Vayechi, that before Yaakov passed away, he wanted to tell his children when Mashiach will be coming. And as he was about to do that, suddenly Hashem made him forget, and he couldn't say it. So obviously he knew the secret, and he forgot the secret, and he couldn't tell it to his children. I mean, of course, there's different explanations that are given. Had we known then, how would we have the How would you have the strength to think, oh, it's going to be thousands of years from now? But on a deeper level, the reason why it's so unknown is because basically what's going to happen when Moshiach comes is going to come from a place that's beyond the nature, a place that's beyond the human comprehension. It's coming from a place in the spiritual realm that's beyond the spheres, beyond the spiritual worlds, and it's a place that's totally unknown. And that's why the way it'll manifest down here is also in a way that's totally unknown. There's so many things about Mashiach that Gemara says, like you hear, it's all mystery. You look at the notes, everything is mystery. We don't know exactly what it means and how do you interpret it. But why are we being told all these things? I guess, first of all, everyone should interpret at least on a level that they can understand it. But it's also letting us know that these things about Mashiach are things that they're coming from a place that's beyond the realm of the 10 spheres, beyond the realm of logic, beyond the realm of anything that relates to our world. And therefore, as far as we're concerned, it's something which cannot be revealed. Not only our world, even the spiritual world. It looks like it's not even revealed to the angels. Yep.
Two questions. First off, if there was opinion saying that like it could last 40 years or like 300, whatever, like isn't half the miracles that we're gonna live forever and the TSMA said like things that couldn't like are those things would those things have been undone in those opinions? So like what would change?
Again, I don't get the
Like,
question.
how could they have how could they say it's gonna last 40 years if like we're gonna have T.S. Mason and then like everyone that's gonna just come back to life and will last for 40 years or like that's gonna happen and
no.
we'll go back to a Geulah and
No, the opposite. Remember, we said the opposite is when they say 40 years, that's the period that's leading up to Tchis HaMesim. The people that say 400 years means it's 400 years leading up to Tchis HaMesim.
But then from there it's gonna. I thought we were saying that's how long Moshiach was gonna last, like the
No,
period of.
That's what it looks like on the surface, but the Mepharshim explain
Right.
that's not what it means. It means that that's the period
Till.
which is going to prepare the world for the other period, for the next period.
Right, and then if we know what day, if Hashem knows the day of Mashiach, and how can we say we're gonna hasten it? Or he knows because it's Hashem that we already.
If it's going to be hastened, then he knows that too. As it goes back to the, free choice and Hashem knowing everything. That's the big question. Yeah.
Will Mashiach know that he's Mashiach? Like, or always, like he initially?
It appears that at a certain point he'll be told that that's his mission. That we take Moshe Rabbeinu as an example. In the Chumash it says that he was a shepherd and he was taking care of his sheep, and he led them till they came to the burning bush. That's when he found the burning bush, and then Hashem appeared to him and told him. So at that point, that's when he found out. Now, did he know before he was a prophet? He was a big tzaddik from the moment he was born. His neshama was already a very high neshama. Did he know? No, I don't know. Doesn't say anything about it. We do know that officially he came to know about it once Hashem told him by the burning bush.
It seems like maybe he didn't, because he's like, why are you picking me? I can't even speak well. Okay.
Well, it could be he knew that he's going to be chosen, and now he was sort of arguing. He was debating with Hashem that he's not the right person to really be Aaron and so on.
So it's mean that the person who was born and was born and then like later.
Right, he was born, so by Hashem he was already designated that this person has the neshama to be Moshiach when the time comes. But the question is, when does the person know about it? When does he find out about it? So that we don't know. I wanted to mention something also which is relevant. I'm sure you all are aware of it, you read about it, you saw it, but the question is how to digest it. So there's something very unusual that happened. It's related to this coming Shabbos, and that is that the President of the United States came out with a declaration being that it's 250 years since the establishment of the United States of America, since this country began. So he feels we should do, and also because of the fact there's so much anti-Semitism, so he wants to do the opposite, to honor the contribution that Jews made to the United States of America. And he brings out that even George Washington had support from a certain Jew who helped finance the war and other Jews. And what is he coming out with? That Jews should keep a Shabbos. All the Jews keep Shabbos. I don't know anyone that could have even dreamt that such a thing could happen. That a president of a country, any country, should come out and say, I'm encouraging Jews to keep Shabbos. And so there's different reactions. Some say, some don't even hear about it. If President Trump said it, forget it. It doesn't matter what he says. If it's Trump, you can't pay any attention to it. So some people are a little bit better than that they can think beyond the word Trump. Will say that it's interesting, it's cute. Of course, the Rebbe trained us to open our eyes and look at everything and see how it's related to Moshiach. What could be more Moshiach than something like this? In other words, the big difference between now, our generation, and the generation before ours, I'm not even talking about right before ours, was probably one of the worst in history. But the difference in between the generations are that throughout history, Jews were always persecuted. Even the best times, had to live in ghettos, they couldn't live in certain cities, there were restrictions. You can't live in this city, you can't live in that city. Jews couldn't do the same thing that everybody else did. They're allowed to engage in these businesses, Jews are not. They're allowed to go to university, Jews are not. A lot of restriction. If you were a Jew, you had restrictions. This is one of the main reasons that led to the assimilation in the times of the Enlightenment movement, because they took off some of the, in Germany, they allowed Jews to go to university. Wow, big simcha. Unfortunately, it led to this, Jews lost their interest in being Jewish. A lot of them converted so they should have privileges. But our generation is a generation where, for the most part, wherever Jews live, total, complete freedom, which means the non-Jewish governments allow us to live freely as a Jew without any difference whatsoever, which in itself is amazing. On top of that, they have pointed out that in many ways they even help us with observing Yiddishkeit. For example, in certain countries, America, one of them, where you get help with sending your children to yeshiva or other kind of financial support, which helps Yidden keep Torah mitzvahs in a better way. So all these things, we already got used to it. The idea that, could you imagine this happening in Germany and France and in Spain and Holland, any of these countries? They just stop the traffic for 8 days, close off traffic. Jews are going to dance now in the street and no traffic. No one can imagine. Even to this day, I don't think it happens in more countries. It's mainly here in New York, such a thing. So they stop the traffic and Yidden are enjoying some Torah. So they're accommodating us in an amazing way. But then for a president to come out and say, making a declaration and encouraging, when he says something, it's in the name of the United States, the country, which is the most powerful country in the world, in the moral world, and not in the immoral world, and the crazy world. It's the most powerful country in the world, and coming out with such a statement, spiritually, this is a 180-degree turn from the way things were before. And this is the only way people can imagine this is Moshiach. Someone told me, this was in 1991 when the changes were taking place in Russia. He says, I remember we were once sitting in a cellar somewhere having this secret for bringing, because it was a danger to have it for bringing in Russia. And people were saying to each other, what do you think the world will look like when Moshiach comes? And one guy said to the other, could you imagine walking in the streets of Russia with tzitzis out, with a beard, a yarmulke, and that's Moshiach. Today, you can have children marching in the streets of Russia with the same signs that they watch here on Lag BaOmer. There's no difference. So what they imagine as Moshiach is actually happening now. If you would ask a person before, could you imagine that some of the nations of the world would come out and say, Jewish people, please start keeping the mitzvahs? Unthinkable. And that's what's happening now. For Chabad Hasidim, there's an additional thing, which I'm sure you must have read that also. And that is that 40 years ago, again the number 40 years ago, the Rebbe came out with a request. And the request was that this Shabbos, the one right before Shavuos, all Jews should unite and get together in Achdus. How do you get together? By doing things together as one. So basically, he chose, without knowing what he's doing, he just chose it, whatever Hashgacha Pratis made him choose, that this Shabbos, this very same Shabbos, 40 years later, everybody should come out. Right? Right, everybody should come out and keep Shabbos together.
The Rebbe said that this Shabbos, we should, 40 years ago, he said we should all keep this Shabbos.
Not all keep the Shabbos. 40 years ago, we said we should all, the Rebbe didn't speak about keeping Shabbos, we should all unite.
Okay.
Find a way of uniting. So people have Farbrengens. In many yeshivas, for example, students from a few different yeshivas come together in one place, so they have everybody together. They've been doing this for years, since the first time, since 1986. They've been doing it every year, this Shabbos before Shavuos, that people get together in one way or another, and they have a Achdus.
That way it's the mission club thing.
No, the Moshiach Hamad started even earlier, and they were always spoke to the women before Shavuos. That's a different thing. That's more related to the fact that it says when Hashem told Moshe to tell the Jewish people about receiving the Torah, he told him to speak to the women first and then to speak to the men. So the Rebbe chooses this time before Shavuos to speak to the women and about the power of women and how they could change the world. But this is something which is really incredible Mashiach Likasoli. And I remember, what year was that? During President Kennedy. President Kennedy once came out with something called Peace Corps. Peace Corps means that people will volunteer to go to different countries, and just America will give them the money and everything and training to go to different countries and help them whatever they need, that they should be able to be more educated, established, civilized, and so on and so forth. And he spoke, and it would be volunteers, not getting paid for it, just to do good to other countries. And the Rebbe spoke about it and said basically he's encouraging shlichus, the same as their shlichus. But I remember the Rebbe then said, you can hear the sikha, I'm sure they're gonna show it on different sites because it's so similar. And the Rebbe said that every country has an angel that's in charge of the country. And when the president of that country speaks, that's his angel telling him what to say, whether he knows it or not. So the angel of the United States of America told the president of the country to say that the time has come that people should pick themselves up, leave the comfort of their homes, go out and see what they can do for people in other countries. So same thing here. Yes, it's a president of the country saying something, but it's really the angel in Shamayim that is speaking and telling him what to say, and telling him to say that now's the time that Yidden should get closer to Yiddishkeit, and of course keep Shabbos, and and that itself is an amazing thing. But what's even greater is how this is a manifestation of how where we're holding with Moshiach. Yeah.
Do you give something to like if someone were to keep Shabbos this week because Trump said it, they're doing it for him and not Hashem? So like a lot of people know about Shabbos and don't do it, but now Trump said it, so we're gonna do it. Like, does that? I don't know if anyone's actually do it, but like if they did it.
So in some circles, I'll get to in a second. In some circles, they would probably say that. They might even, I know some. They might even say this: if you're keeping Shabbos for Trump, don't do it.
Well,
If
it's
you
good
do
they're keeping
Hashem,
Shabbos, but
So we know that in Judaism there's a principle, no matter what your reason is, if you're doing something which Hashem told you to do it anyway, even if you know that you're not doing it for the right reasons, because mitoch shelo lishma bo lishma, which Chassidus explains, even if I'm doing it for ulterior motive, but deep inside my neshama is doing it for the right reason, so it's emes. Yeah. What?
Do the president is the orphanage or something, or a shem?
President-
Under a shem.
The truth is, I don't know how that works with Israel, because Yidden are a little bit different. Everything else depends on Torah and mitzvahs. But there's no doubt that a person who has a position where he's the head of many other people, there is something more direct connected. So, I mean, there is something in Gemara where it says that anyone that's chosen to be the head, even if he's the head of a club, then it's from Shemayim, a special Ashgacha Pratis, that this person should be the head. So, no, I don't know if it's an angel, but there's something about that person that he's chosen to be in that position. Yeah.
But do we allow to hate what he's doing if he's doing bad,
Yes. Of course.
even if we know that it's.
Yeah, not hate the person, but you can hate what he's doing if he's doing something bad. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if this is correct, but I just read that President Trump, that the president of Argentina is a lovager.
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's calling him a lovager.
We're in the same family. Yeah.
Because he goes frequently, I guess, to the Oval.
Right. No, he's passionate about the Rebbe also.
Yeah, he's passionate about the revenue, yeah. I just said he called him a lovager, that dialogue is being said in the sense of the president
Yeah. Yeah.
using the word lovager, like
Right.
that's.
Yeah. Well, he also basically meant to say that he's also part of the code, you know.
He said
He
it.
said, well, yeah.
Oh, he said, he called himself incorrectly a bucket.
Well, he said we're like family with the Lubavitch.
That was a beautiful day. It's my day off.
But I'm saying high school, like academically and the public experience, they got. He excels in this world, in the true world.
In the world, we recognize that. They have little things, that's right.
Yeah. So happy for him.
You think we'll do this?
It's the funny guy, not again. I know, right? I love you so much. Like,
How about fire?
it's bad. No, I just want to say, I'm good. Well, there's your mother's 100.
Yeah, constantly.
Wow.
Yeah, constantly.
And I'll slam the door.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Or you.
Good. You look great. I'm just still. Every day. What are you plans for next year? What do you think about on your thing? Did you get the one? Yes. Yeah. Someday they're like, oh, maybe this is very hard. This is comes here. Yeah. Have to bring more training, but I'm gonna. So nice. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Yes.
You did it.
Right. Because I know that. Do I do that? We can also the line up book me. Where you. And I saw, she went to like quick girl. This now. We did it. Yeah.